killing giant bugs, and what is video game junk food. This and more with Play and Tell. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Play and Tell. I'm your host Xander Skullion, where I talk about games I've been playing and give little short reviews, short impressions, and most importantly, when you walk away, you have something new to play. Now, something I have to admit to you guys is I have a video game compilation addiction. I find myself buying compilations to games I already own just for the sheer convenience, just because I love to have a bunch of games in one collection. It's just something that I like to do. And of course, right now I'm talking about the Capcom Stadium Arcade. Wow. The thing about it is I've owned all these Capcom games. I've owned so many of them, and I have so many ways of playing these games. But I saw on the Switch for $30, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and buy it. Now, granted, the compilation itself is free. You can download it, but they sell the games in packages individually, like DLC, and it's like 30, maybe $40 tops to get all the games. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and do that because I was like, I love to play Strider on the Nintendo Switch. I'd love to play, Captain Commando on the Nintendo Switch. I already have so many ways of playing Street Fighter 2. Why not just add another compilation? But I do have to say, I love this compilation because of the passion. These are the games I grew up with. These are things that I absolutely love. And when it comes to video games, is those old Capcom classics. And I love, going in and seeing the different arcades and seeing the art, changing the, regions, so you get the Japanese versions of the ROMs. The rewind feature and save states is a great addition. But one of the games I definitely want to talk about in this episode was 1944, The Loop Master. Game I'd never played before. I've played a lot of 1944 games, but this is one I've never played before. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first time this has been on a console. I don't think it's been on a console previously. If it was, I've never played it. And let me tell you, there is something I love about those early 2000 shooters that are just amazing. The 2D sprite art is just mesmerizing. The soundtrack is always good, and I played this game. I had a couple of beers. I was sitting in the living room, and I just had this pure zen moment that I get when I play those shooters. When I'm playing shooters or shmups, I have this zen moment, and Loop Master did it, and I was like, you know what? This compilation, just for that game alone, was definitely worth it. Miles and Kilo is a tongue-in-cheek adventure following a boy and his dog who crash land on a haunted island, and a ghoulish ghost takes all the parts. And that's right, it's your job to collect all those pieces to get back home. The stages are linear in that good old-fashioned retro way, which I really enjoy. This being a single-player affair, you actually control Miles and Kilo at the same time. Miles, he plays more like your standard Mario character, who can throw fruit just like Mario can throw fireballs, but you can only carry up to 5 at a time. And switching to Kilo actually activates more speed and longer jumps, including the ability to hone in on enemies with a target attack. Kinda reminds you of someone else, huh? Kilo, however, moves at his own pace. He never slows down or stops. He's gotta go fast. I guess someone taught him that. So playing as him creates a rather difficult experience. But with 36 levels and a cheap price tag, this is a charming platform you don't want to let fly over your head. Now, I was on Amazon the other day, and I was like, you know what? I don't really need to buy this game, but why not? I'll buy it anyway. It was a Kickstarter, and it was one of the most underrated games on the Wii U. I mean, the Wii U itself is underrated. I was a firm believer of the Wii U back when it first came out, and it's one of those consoles now that people are kind of starting to realize, hey, this was actually a really good console that, even though it didn't have a whole lot of games, the games they did have were freaking awesome. So awesome that we're getting all the ports on the Nintendo Switch. And I am talking about Wonderful 101, a amazing platinum game. With a wonderful blend of Super Sentai-inspired romp with great characters, amazing music, and some of the most downright impressive boss battles you'll ever honestly see, what's not to love about Wonderful 101? Well, the battle system itself can have a slight learning curve. See, you control a huge group of characters, taking down the bad guys and solving puzzles, and despite it's not on the Wii U gamepad, I feel like it still plays rather well on the Nintendo Switch. Well, to further explain, the weapons you interact with the world and your enemies is like a visual language, which eventually starts to develop where you'll learn when you see spikes, you need to switch to the whip. When there's a beam, you need to have a sword to reflect it. And when there's a circular bomb on the ground, you need to use your gun to suck it up and shoot it out. Very little of this visual language, though, is intuitive, and which is why it's a bit of a problem. And it's rarely explained or taught to you. You kind of just have to pick it up as you go. And at times, it can feel like the developers expect you to read their minds when it comes to knowing how to avoid certain attacks. But with a 10 to 12 hour story, if you're a huge Platinum Games fan and love games like Beautiful Joe and missed out on this gem on the Wii U, this is definitely something to check out. And, I don't know what it is, but I've been really celebrating the Xbox 360. I've been playing a lot of games that I owned that I hadn't played in like about, almost 10 years now, and it's hard to believe. And it's still one of my favorite consoles. It's still a console that I think to this day, a lot of games still hold up. A lot of them are freaking amazing. And this goes into video game junk food. What is video game junk food? Video game junk food is like when you play a game that doesn't really have a whole lot of substance, but it scratches that itch and you have fun. Sometimes you need some video game junk food. And recently I watched Starship Troopers. I had never seen that movie before. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. I hear the sequels aren't as good. I'm kind of staying away from the sequels, but the first one was a campy, just really good 90s movie. But when I was watching this, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, this makes me think of one of my favorite Xbox 360 games, Earth Defense Force Insect Armageddon. Earth Defense Force Insect Armageddon is a third-person shooter. You take the control of members of the Earth Defense Force, fighting the good old fight for humanity against an alien threat known as the Ravengers. You don't know much about them, except they're set on destroying the Earth, and it's up to you and a couple of humans to turn them into a bloody pulp. It's a campy setup, and it works perfectly to provide a setting where giant ants and spiders and wasps and towering robots are kind of a norm in the battlefield. It also results in some pretty terrible yet awesome dialogue between the characters with all sorts of one-liners. I think it's pretty obvious that Insect Armageddon doesn't take itself or the plot at all seriously, and I'm completely okay with that. Since I don't have an Xbox One, I'm not sure if this game is on Game Pass, but I'm pretty sure the game itself for the 360 isn't that much to buy nowadays. 15 levels in the campaign, it's pretty short, but it's fun, energy-driven, that really scratched that gaming itch, and like I've said, it's good old video game junk food.
Lightning, you've got a new threat in the area.
Anyway guys, those are some games I've been playing recently. What have you been playing? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear some of your recommendations, some of your reviews of maybe some of the games I've talked about that you've played. That I'd love to hear some of your opinions on it. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, but also hit the bell so you're notified on all future videos that come out on this channel. Anyway guys, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.